Hello and welcome to Cafe Arcadia. Um, I am going to be reading stories today. I have two people with me right now. I've got Brawler and Maki. Can you guys hear me?
Can hear you perfectly.
Awesome.
Yep, we can hear you.
Cool. All right, so some of the stories tonight are going to be a little short. We're still reading from the Hans Christian Andersen stories until I get some suggestions for other stories to read. Um, we do have a Discord. It's called Cafe Arcadia. I have a list of a bunch of stories that if people want to choose from, they can. Or if you want to just make suggestions, I'm up to that too. Just nothing that will get me in trouble with Twitch, please. I greatly appreciate that. Um, so I'm going to be reading at least four of them as long as my voice holds out. I had a little difficulty last week. So it's going to be The Elfin Hill, The Saucy Boy, The Steadfast Tin Soldier, The Flax, and if my voice is still good, The Swineherd. So we're gonna start with The Elfin Hill. I see what you did there, Mr. Brawl. I see what you did. Anyway, so let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So with The Elfin Hill. Some large lizards were nimbly running about in the clefts of an old tree. They understood one another very well, for they all spoke the lizard language. "I have wondered what is rumbling and rattling in yon old elfin hill," said the first lizard. "I have been unable to shut an eye for the last 2 nights. So great was the noise. It was just as bad as toothache, for that also prevents me from sleeping." "Yes," said a third lizard. Er, Sorry. "I am sure there is something going on," said another lizard. They had the top of the hill propped up by 4 red pillars until the cock crowed this morning. It must be well aired. The elfin girls have also learned new dances. Surely there is something going on. "Yes," said the third lizard. "I have seen an earthworm of my acquaintance, just when it came out of the hill where it had been groping about in the ground day and night. It has heard a good deal. The unfortunate animal cannot see, but knows well enough how to wriggle about and listen. They expect visitors at the Elfin Hill, and very distinguished ones too, but whom the earthworm was unwilling or unable to tell me. All the will-o'-wisps are ordered to take part in a torchlight procession, as it is called. The silver and gold, of which there is plenty in the hill, is polished and placed out in the moonlight." "Who may these visitors be?" asked the lizards. "What are they doing? Listen, how it hums and rumbles." No sooner had they said this than the elfin hill opened and an old elfin girl, hollow at the back, came tripping out. She was the housekeeper of the elfin king, and being distantly connected with the family, she wore an amber heart on her forehead. Her feet moved so nimbly. Trip, trip. Good gracious, how she could trip! She went straight down to the sea, to the night raven. Trip as she walked. She didn't actually trip, as we say it. "Who is to be invited?" asked the night raven. "All the world may attend the grand ball, even human beings, if they can talk in their sleep, or know anything of the like, which is according to our ways. But for the feast the company has to be strictly select. We only wish to have tip-top society. I have had an argument with the king, for in my opinion not even ghosts ought to be admitted. The merman and his daughters have been invited first of all. Perhaps they may not like to come to the dry land, but we shall provide them with whetstones to sit on, or with something still better, and under these circumstances I think they will not refuse this time." All the old demons of the first class, with tales such as goblins, we must invite, of course. Further, I think, we must not forget the grave pig, the death horse, nor the church dwarf. They belong, it is true, to the clergy, who are not of our class, but that is only their vocation. They are our near relatives, and frequently call upon us. Croak, said the night raven. It flew off at once to invite the people. The elfin girls were already dancing on the hill. They were wrapped in shawls made of mist and moonshine, which look very pretty to people who like things of this kind. The large hall in the center of the elfin hill was beautifully adorned. The floor had been washed with moonshine, while the walls had been polished with a salve prepared by witches, so that they shined like tulip leaves in the light. In the kitchen they were very busy. Frogs were roasting on the spit, dishes of snail skins with children's fingers and salads of mushroom seed, hemlock and mouse noses were preparing. There was beer of the marsh woman's make, sparkling wine of saltpeter from the grave vaults. All that was very substantial food. The dessert consisted of rusty nails and glass from church windows. The old king of the elves had his golden crown polished with crusted slate pencil. It was the same as used in the first form, and indeed it is difficult for an elf king to obtain such slate pencils. In the bedroom, curtains were hung up and fastened with snail slime. There was a running, rumbling, and jostling everywhere. Now let us perfume the place by burning horsehair and pig's bristles, and then, I think, I have done all I can, said the old elfin girl. Father dear, said the youngest daughter, may I now know who our distinguished guests will be? Well, I suppose I may tell you now, he said. 2 of my daughters must be prepared for marriage, for 2 will certainly be married. The old goblin of Norway, who lives in the old Dover Mountains, and possesses many strong castles built on the cliffs and a gold mine, which is much better than people think, will come down with his 2 sons, who are both looking out for a wife. The old goblin is as genuine and honest an old chap as Norway ever brought forth. He is merry and straightforward, too. I have known him a very long time. We used to drink together to our good friendship. He was last here to fetch his wife. She is dead now. She was a daughter of the king of the chalk hills near Moen. He took his wife on't, as people say. Oh, how I am longing for the dear old goblin again. They say his sons are somewhat naughty and forward, but people may do them wrong by supposing that, and I think they will be all right when they grow older. Let me see what you can teach them good manners. When are they coming? Asked one of the daughters. That depends on wind and weather, replied the king of the elves. They travel economically. They will come when they have the chance to go by ship. I wish them to come through Sweden, but that is not the old man's liking. He does not advance with time, and I do not like that at all. Just then 2 will-o'-wisps came leaping in, the one much quicker than the other, and therefore one arrived first. They are coming, they cried. Give me my crown and let me stand in the moonshine, said the elf king. The daughters raised their shawls and bowed to the ground. There stood the old goblin from Dover. He wore a crown of hardened ice and polished fir cones. He was wrapped in a bear's skin and had large warm boots on. His sons, on the contrary, had nothing round their necks and no braces on their trousers, for they were strong men. Is that a hill? Asked the youngest of the boys, pointing to the elfin hill. We should call it a hole in Norway. Boys, said the old man, you ought to know better. A hole goes in, a hill stands out. Have you no eyes in your heads? The only thing that struck them, they said, was that they were able to understand the language without any difficulty. Don't be so foolish, said the old goblin. People might think you are unfledged." Then they all went into the Elfin Hill, where the distinguished visitors had assembled, and so quickly that it seemed as if the wind had blown them together. But everyone was nicely and well accommodated. The sea folks sat at the dinner in big water tubs. They said they felt quite at home. All showed very good breeding, except the two young goblins of the north, who put their legs on the table, for they imagined that they might take such liberties. "Take your feet off the table," said the old goblin, and they obeyed, though reluctantly. They tickled their fair neighbors at the table with fir cones which they brought in their pockets. They took their boots off, in order to be at ease, and gave them to the ladies to hold. But their father, the old Dover goblin, was quite different. He talked so well about the stately Norwegian rocks, and of the waterfalls which rushed down with a noise like thunder and the sound of an organ, forming white foam. He told of the salmon which leaped against the rushing water when the wreck begins to play on the golden harp. He spoke of the fine moonlit winter nights when the sleigh bells are ringing and the young men skate with burning torches in their hands over the ice, which is so clear and transparent that they frighten the fish under their feet. He could talk so well that those who listened to him saw all in reality. It was just as if the sawmills were going, and if the servants and maids were singing and dancing. Suddenly the old goblin gave the old elf girl a kiss, and it was a real kiss, and yet they were almost strangers to each other. After this, the elfin girls had to perform their dances, first the ordinary way, and then with stamping of their feet, and it looked very well. Afterwards came the artistic and solo dance. Good gracious, how they threw their legs up! Nobody knew where they began or where they ended, nor which were the legs and which were the arms. All were flying about like sawdust, and they turned so quickly round that the death horse and the grave pig became unwell and had to leave the room. "Hullo!" cried the old goblin. "This is a strange way of working about with the legs. But what do they know besides dancing, stretching the legs, and producing a whirlwind?" "That you shall soon see. That you shall soon see," said the Elf King, and called the youngest of his daughters. She was as nimble and bright as moonshine. She was indeed the finest looking of all the sisters. She had a white chip of wood into her mouth that disappeared instantly. That was her accomplishment. But the old goblin said he should not like his wife to possess such a power, and was sure his sons would be of the same opinion. The second could walk by her own side as if she had a shadow, while everybody knows that goblins never have a shadow. The third was quite different in her accomplishments. She had been apprenticed to the marshwoman at the brewery, and knew well how to lard elder tree logs with glowworms. "She will make a good housekeeper," said the old goblin, drinking her health with his eyes, as he did not wish to take anything more. Now came the fourth, with a large harp to play upon. No sooner had she struck the first chord than all lifted up the left leg, for the goblins were left-legged, and when she touched the strings again, everyone had to do what she wished. "That is a dangerous person," said the old goblin, and his two sons went out of the hill, for now they had seen quite enough. "What does your next daughter know?" asked the old goblin. "I have learned to admire all that is Norwegian, and I shall never marry unless I go to Norway." But the smallest sisters whispered into the old man's ear, "That is only because she has heard in a Norwegian song that when the world is destroyed through water, the Norwegian cliffs will remain standing like monuments. Therefore she wishes to go there, because she is so much afraid of being drowned." "Ho, ho!" said the old goblin. "Is that really what she meant? But tell me, what can the seventh and last do?" "The sixth comes before the seventh," said the Elf King, "for he couldn't for he could count, but the sixth was rather timid. "I can only tell people the truth," she said at last. "Nobody cares for me, and I am sufficiently occupied in making my shroud." Now came the seventh and last. What could she do? Why, she could tell fairy tales, and as many as ever she wished. "Here are my 5 fingers," said the old goblin. "Tell me one for each of them." And she took him by the wrist, and he laughed so much that he was nearly choked. And when she came to the ring finger, which had a gold ring upon it, as if it was aware that a betrothal should take place, the goblin said, "Hold fast what you have. This hand is yours. I shall marry you myself." And then the elfin girl said that the tales of the ring finger and that of Peter Playman had yet to be told. "Those we shall hear in the winter," said the old goblin, "and also those of the birch tree, of the ghost's presence, and the choking and the creaking frost. You shall relate all your stories, for nobody up there can tell stories well. And then we shall sit in the rooms of stones, where the pine logs are burning, and we shall drink mead out of the drinking horns of the Norwegian kings. Rek has made me a present of a couple of them, and when we are sitting there, the mermaid will come see us. She will sing to you all the songs of the shepherd girls in the mountains. We shall enjoy it very much. The salmon will leap up in the waterfalls against the stone walls, but they cannot come in. Indeed, life is very pleasant in dear old Norway. But where are my boys?" Where had they gone to? They were running about in the fields and blowing out the will-o'-wisps who had so kindly come to march in the torchlight procession. "What have you been doing?" asked the old goblin. "I have taken a new mother for you. Now you can each choose one of the aunts." But the boys declared that they preferred to make speeches and drink. They had no wish to marry, and they began to make speeches, drank to other people's health, and emptied their glasses to the dregs. Afterwards, they took off their coats and placed themselves on the tables to sleep, for they did not stand on ceremonies. But the old goblin danced with his young sweetheart about the room, and exchanged boots with her, for that is more fashionable than exchanging rings. "The cock is crowing," cried the old elfin girl that did the housekeeping. "Now we must close the shutters, lest the sun burn us." Then the hill was closed up, but outside the lizards were running about in the cleft tree, and one said to the other, "I like the old Norwegian goblin very much." "I prefer the boys," said the earthworm, but the unfortunate animal could not see. So that's the first one. All right, and next we are going to move on to the saucy boy. Once upon a time there was an old poet, one of those right good old poets. One evening, as he was sitting at home, there was a terrible storm going on outside. The rain was pouring down, but the old poet sat comfortably in his chimney corner, where the fire was burning and the apples were masting. "There will not be a dry thread left on the poor people who are out in this weather," he said. "Oh, open the door! I am so cold and wet through," called a little child outside. It was crying and knocking at the door while the rain was pouring down and the wind was rattling all the windows. "Poor creature," said the poet, and got up and opened the door. Before him stood a little boy. He was naked, and the water flowed from his long fair locks. He was shivering with cold. If he had not been let in, he would certainly have perished in the storm. "Poor little thing," said the poet, and took him by the hand. "Come to me. I will soon warm you. You shall have some wine and an apple, for you are such a pretty boy." And he was too. His eyes sparkled like 2 bright stars, and although the water flowed from his fair locks, they still curled quite beautifully. He looked like a little angel, but was pale with cold and trembling all over. In his hand he held a splendid bow, but it had been entirely spoiled by the rain, and the colors of the pretty arrows had run into one another by getting wet. The old man sat down by the fire, and taking the little boy onto his knee, wrung the water out of his locks and warmed his hands in his own. Then he made him some hot spiced wine, which quickly revived him, so that, with reddening cheeks, he sprang upon the floor and danced around the old man. "You are a merry boy," said the latter. "What is your name?" "My name is Cupid," he answered. "Don't you know me? There lies my bow. I shoot with that, you know. Look, the weather is getting fine again. The moon is shining." "But your bow is spoiled," said the old poet. "That would be unfortunate," said the little boy, taking it up and looking at it. "Oh, it's quite dry, and it isn't damaged at all. The string is quite tight. I'll try it." So, drawing it back, he took an arrow, aimed, and shot the good old poet right in the heart. "Do you see now that my bow is not spoiled?" he said, and, loudly laughing, ran away. What a naughty boy to shoot the old poet like that, who had taken him in to his warm room, had been so good to him, and had given him the nicest wine and the best apple. The good old man lay on the floor crying. He was really shot in the heart. "Oh," he cried, "what a naughty boy this Cupid is! I shall tell all the good children about this, so they take care never to play with him, lest he hurt them." And all the good children, both girls and boys, whom he told about this, were on their guard against the wicked Cupid. But he deceives them all with the same, for he is very deep. When the students come out of class, he walks beside them with a book under his arm, and wearing a black coat. They cannot recognize him. And then, if they take him by the arm, believing him to be a student too, he sticks an arrow into their chest. And when the girls go to church to be confirmed, he is among them too. In fact, he is always after people. He sits in the large chandelier in the theater and blazes away, so that people think it is a lamp. But they soon find out their mistake. He walks about in the castle garden and on the promenade. Yes, once he shot your father and your mother in the heart too. Just ask them, and you will hear what they say. Oh, he is a bad boy, this Cupid, and you must never have anything to do with him, for he is after everyone. Just think, he even shot an old arrow at old grandmother. But that was a long time ago. The wound has long been healed, but such things are never forgotten. Now you know what a bad boy this wicked Cupid is. So that is the Saucy Boy. It is very short. Oh, excuse me. On to the Steadfast Tin Soldier. There were once 25 tin soldiers, who were all brothers, as they were cast from the old tin spoon. They all carried a gun in their left arm and looked straight forward. The uniform was red and blue. The first words which they heard upon seeing the light of day, when the lid was taken off the box in which they were packed, were, "Tin soldiers!" These words were uttered by a little boy who had received them as a birthday present, and clasped his hands for joy. He then put them in rank and file on the table. One soldier looked exactly like the other, only one, who had been cast last of all, when there was not enough tin, was not like his brothers, for he had only one leg. Nevertheless, he stood just as firmly on his one leg as the others on two. And he was the one who became remarkable. On the table on which they were placed were many other toys, but what they caught the eye most of all was the pretty little castle of cardboard. Though its small windows one could look into the rooms. Before the castle stood little trees surrounding a clear lake, which was formed by a small looking-glass. Swans made of wax were swimming on it, and were reflected by it. All of this was very pretty, but the prettiest of all was a little lady who stood in the front door of the castle. She was cut out of paper, but she had a frock of the whitest muslin on, and a piece of narrow blue ribbon was fixed on her shoulders, like a bodice. On it was fixed a glittery tinsel rose, as large as her whole face. The little lady stretched out both arms, for she was a dancer, and as she had lifted one leg high up so that the tin soldier could not see it, he thought she only had one leg, like himself. That is a wife for me, he thought, but she is very grand. She lives in a castle, while I only have a box, which I share with 24. That is not a place for her. I must make her acquaintance. And then he laid himself at full length behind a snuff-box, which was on the table. From his place he could see the little well-dressed lady, who continued to stand on one leg without losing her balance. At night the tin soldiers were put back into their box, and the people of the house went to bed. Now the toys began to play, to pay visits, to make war, and to go to balls. The tin soldiers rattled in their box, for they wished to take part in the games, but they could not raise the lid. The nutcrackers made somersaults, the slate pencils enjoyed itself on the slate. They made so much noise that the canary woke up and began to talk, and that was in verse. The tin soldier and the dancer were the only ones who remained in their places. She was standing on tiptoe, with her arms stretched out. He stood firmly on his one leg, never taking his eyes away from her for a moment. When the clock struck 12, suddenly the lid of the snuff-box was flung open. There was no snuff in it, but a small black jack-in-the-box, who had performed his trick. "Tin soldier," said the jack, "don't covet things that don't belong to you." The tin soldier pretended not to hear anything. "All right, wait till tomorrow," said the jack. When the morning had come and the children were up, the tin soldier was placed on the window-sill. All at once, whether through draught or through the jack, the window flew open, and the tin soldier fell headlong down into the street from the third story. That was a terrible fall. His one leg high up in the air, he stood on his helmet, while his bayonet entered into the ground between the paving stones. The servant... Oh, someone followed. Thank you. Thank you, Ardcan. I appreciate that. The servant and the little boy came at once down to look for him, but although they were so close to him, and they almost trod upon him, they did not find him. If the tin soldier had cried, "Here I am," they would surely have found him, but he did not consider it proper to cry aloud, because he was in uniform. Now it began to rain, first very little, but soon more, till it became a heavy shower. When the rain had ceased, two boys passed the soldier. "Look, there is a tin soldier," said one of them. "Let us make a boat for him." They then made a boat out of a piece of newspaper, put the tin soldier in it, and let him float down the gutter. Both ran by the side and clapped their hands for pleasure. Heaven preserve us! They were large waves in the gutter, and a strong current too, for the rain had been pouring down in torrents. The paper boat was rocking up and down sometimes. It turned round so quickly that the tin soldier trembled, but he remained firm. He did not move a muscle, and looked straight forward, holding the gun in his arm. Suddenly the boat was driven under by a large bridge over the gutter, and there it became as dark as in the tin soldier's box. Where am I going to? He thought. That is the fault of the black Jack in the box. I wish the little lady were here with me in the boat. Then I should not mind how dark it was. Then came the big water rat, which lived under the bridge. Have you a passport? Asked the rat. Give it up at once. But the tin soldier was silent and held his gun tighter than before. The boat was rushed forward. The rat followed, gnashing its teeth and crying out to the chips of wood and straws. Stop him! Stop him! He has paid no toll and has not shown his passport. The current became stronger and stronger. The tin soldier could already see the light of day where the bridge ended, but he also heard a roaring noise, strong enough to frighten a brave man. Just think, the gutter ran there, where the bridge ended, into a canal that was for him as dangerous as for us to cross a big waterfall. He was already so close to it that stopping was impossible. The boat drifted on. The poor tin soldier held himself as stiff as he could. Nobody could say of him that he had blinked an eye. The boat rapidly whirled round 3 or 4 times, and was filled with water to the very brim. He must sink down. The tin soldier stood up to his neck in the water. Deeper and deeper sank the boat. More and more of the paper became wet and limp. Then the water closed over his head. He thought of the sweet little dancer, which he should never see again, and it sounded into his ear. Farewell, soldier, true and brave. Nothing now thy life can save. Then the paper boat fell into pieces, and the tin soldier, sinking into the water, was swallowed up by a large fish. It was indeed very dark inside the fish, much darker than under the bridge over the gutter, and, in addition, was awfully narrow. But the tin soldier remained firm, and lay down at full length, holding his gun tightly in his arm. The fish was swimming about, and made most extraordinary movements. At last it became quiet. It seemed as if a flash of light passed through it. The broad daylight appeared, and a voice said, Hello, there is the tin soldier. The fish had been caught and taken to market. There it had been sold, and brought to the kitchen, where the cook was just cutting it open. With 2 fingers she took the tin soldier round the waist, carried him to the room, and showed everyone the wonderful man who had been traveling about in a fish's stomach. But the tin soldier was not proud. They put him on the table, and there, what strange things occurred in this world. He was in the same place where he had been before. He saw the same children, and the same toys were on the table. There was also the pretty castle with the dear little dancer. She stood still on one leg, and held the other high up in the air. She, too, was steadfast. The tin soldier was very much touched, and he nearly shed tin tears, but that was not becoming for a soldier. He looked at her, but said nothing. Suddenly, one of the little boys took up the tin soldier and threw him into the stove, without giving any reason for this strange conduct. Surely it was again the fault of the Jack-in-the-box. The tin soldier stood there in the strong light, and felt an unbearable heat. But whether the heat was caused by real fire or by love, he did not know. His colors had vanished, and nobody could say if that happened during his journey, or if heart grief was the cause of it. He looked at the little lady, and she looked at him, and he felt that he was melting, but he still stood upright with his gun in his arm. All at once the door flew open. The wind seized the dancer. She flew like a sylph into the stove to the tin soldier, where she was burnt and gone in a moment. The tin soldier melted down into a lump, and when the servant cleared out the cinders on the next morning, she found it in the shape of a little tin heart of the little dancer. Only the tinsel rose was left, which had become as black as coal. What did you see, bro?
Huh?
What did you see?
Oh, I just saw the follow.
Yeah, I heard it, and on my screen it shows new follower.
Hmm. Yeah, I think my computer's a little bit slower.
Well, I mean, if you watch the stream that I have set up in Discord, you can see it in real time. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
that's actually my one of my roommates.
Oh.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the name he goes by on like Discord and that. Okay, so I think the last one I'm gonna do is the flax. The flax was standing in full bloom. It had pretty blue flowers, as delicate as wings of a moth, if not more so. The sun was warming it with its rays. The rain clouds watered it, and that was as beneficial to the flax as it is to the little children who washed, or to be washed and afterwards kissed by their mothers. It makes them look much brighter, and it did the flax. People say I am standing very well, said the flax, that I have a good length to make a piece of strong linen. Oh, I am so very happy. I am certainly the happiest of all plants. How well I am cared for, and I shall be useful. How much I enjoy the warm sun, how much the rain refreshes me. I am exceedingly happy. Nay, I am the happiest of all plants. That is all very well, said the fence post. You do not know the world as well as I, for I have plenty of knots in me. And then it groaned quite piteously. Snip, snap, snur. Bachelor, ended is the song. No, it is not ended, said the flax. The sun will shine tomorrow, or the rain will refresh us. I feel how strong I am growing. I see that I am in full flower. I am the happiest of all plants. One day people came, seized the flax, pulled it out by the roots. That was very painful. They placed it in water as if they intended to drown it, and afterwards hung it over a fire as if they wished to fry it. Oh, that was dreadful. One cannot always be happy, said the flax. One must also suffer in order to become experienced. And things much worse happened to it. The flax was steeped, roasted, broken, and hackled. How could it possibly know the names of the various operations they performed upon it? Afterwards the flax was put on the spinning wheel. Whir, whir, the wheels turned so rapidly round that the flax was not able to gather its thoughts. How very happy I was, it thought, while it suffered agonies of pain. One must be contented with the good one has enjoyed in the past. Contented, contented. Thus the flax still said when it was put on the loom. A large piece of beautiful linen was woven from it, and all the flax, to the very last dot, was used up for this one piece. But it is marvelous. I should never have thought it. Fortune favors me very much indeed. The fence post knew something, after all, when it sang, snip, snap, snur. Besseler. The song is by no means ended. No, on the contrary, now it only begins. That is very extraordinary. I have suffered a great deal, no doubt, but now I have turned out into something useful. I am the happiest of all plants. How strong and fine, how white and long I am. It is something very different from being only a plant, although it bears flowers. As a plant, one is not so much looked after. It gets only water only when it rains. Now I am well cared for. The maid turns me over every morning, and at night she gives me a shower bath with the watering pot. The pastor's wife has even made a speech in praise of me. She said I was the best piece of linen in the whole parish. I cannot possibly be happier than I am now. The linen was taken into the house and operated upon with scissors. How they cut and tore it and pricked it with the sewing needles! It was by no means a pleasure. They made 12 garments of it with a kind which people do not like to mention, although nobody can get on without them. They made a whole dozen out of one piece of linen. Look at me now, said the flax, only now I have become something really useful, and clearly understand that I am designed for this world. What a blessing! Now I am useful, and so everyone ought to be, for that is only the only true happiness in the world. Although they have cut 12 pieces of me, all the 12 are one and the same. We just make up a dozen. What an exceptional luck! Years and years passed. The garments were so much worn that they began to fall to pieces. There must be an end one day, said every piece. I should have very much liked to last a little longer, but one must not expect more than is possible. Then they were torn into rags and tatters. It is all over now, they thought, when they were ground in a mill, soaked and boiled, and when through various processes they were unable to remember, but they became beautiful white paper. That is a surprise indeed, and what a pleasant one, said the paper. Now I am finer than before, and now they will write upon me, and that is an extraordinary good fortune. And really the most interesting stories of the beautiful stanzas were written upon the paper, and there was only one ink blot. Of course, this was quite an exceptional chance, and the people heard what was written upon it. It was good and clever, and made them better and enlightened them. Thus the words written on this paper produced such a great blessing. That is more than I ever dreamed of. When I was a little blue flower in the field, how could I come into my mind that I should be destined to give mankind pleasure and knowledge? I can hardly believe it, and yet it is true. God knows that I have made myself done nothing more with my feeble strength than what is necessary for my existence and growth, and yet he heaps honor after honor upon me. Whatever I think, now the song is ended, I pass into something better and higher. Now I shall probably travel about in the world, that all people may read what is written upon me. It can't be otherwise. It is most likely. I have so many great thoughts written upon me, as I have had formerly blue flowers. I am indeed the happiest of all plants. The paper, however, was not sent on travels. Nay, it was taken to the printers, and there was a whole manuscript was set up in type, and a book, or rather many hundreds of books, were made of it, so that many more might have pleasure and profit from the writing than is possible. If the paper on which it was written had been sent about in the world, no doubt it would have fallen to pieces before it had journeyed half its journey. Certainly, this is the wisest thing that could have been done, thought the written paper, although it never struck me. I remain at home, and am honored like an old grandfather, for that I am indeed to all new books. Thus some good can be done. I should not have been able to wander about much. Only he who wrote the book has looked at me, for everyone of his words run out his pen straight upon me. I am the happiest of all. Then the paper was tied up in a bundle with other papers, and thrown into a cask which stood in the wash-house. When the work is done, and it is pleasant to rest, said the paper. It is wise to collect one's thoughts and to reflect on all that lives in one. It is only now that I thoroughly understand all that is written upon me. I wonder what will happen now. Surely there will be progress again. One always advances, that I know by my own experience. One day all the paper was taken out of the cask and placed on the hearth. It was to be burned, for people said it must not be sold to tradesmen to wrap butter or sugar on it. All the children of the house were standing round the fireplace, for they wished to see the paper burning. It flamed up so beautifully, and afterwards one could see so many red sparks flying about in the ashes. One after another of the sparks disappeared as quickly as the wind. They called it seeing the children coming out of school. The last spark was the schoolmaster. They thought they all knew about it, but it was a mistake. We, however, shall soon know. All of the old paper, the whole bundle of it, was put on the fire and was soon ablaze. It said, it flamed up high. This is not at all pleasant. But when all was alight, the bright flames reached much higher than the flax would ever have been able to stretch its little blue flowers, and the flames shined more brightly than the linen could have ever done. All the written letters turned red for a moment, and all the words and thoughts they expressed vanished in the flames. "Now I am flying straight up to the sun," said a voice in the flame, and it seemed as if 1,000 tiny voices repeated it, and the flames came out of the chimney pot. The finer the flames, and finer than the flames, invisible to human eyes, there were rising up as many little beings as the flax had had flowers. They were still lighter than the flame that had borne them, and when it was extinguished and nothing left of the paper but black ashes, they danced once more over the ashes, and wherever they touched it, red sparks leapt up. The children came out of school, and the last was the schoolmaster. That was a pleasure, and the children sang, "Snip, snap, snur, bouseler," ended as the song. But all the little invisible beings said, "The song is never ended. That is the best of all, and therefore I am the happiest of all the world." Of course the children could neither hear nor understand it, and that was quite right, for children must not know everything. Okay, and so that's it for story time. Maki, Brawl, you guys can talk now. What did you guys think of the stories?
They were nice.
Good story.
R.I.P. to the Tin Soldier or one of his friends, I think, because like one got ate by a fish.
No,
Ripperoni.
that was the same Tin Soldier.
Oh,
Yeah, the one
That
with
tin soldier did not have a fun time.
no, not really. But he went on a journey and ended up back in the same place, but then he got melted.
yep. R.I.P.
Yep. What did you think of the other ones?
They were good too. Like I liked them.
Did you like the saucy boy?
He was lost in the sauce.
The saucy boy.
But yes, it turns out saucy boy was actually just Cupid.
He was secretly Cupid.
Secretly, yes, he was totally secretly Cupid.
Sorry, was stretching.
But yeah, hey Nell, how's it going?
I don't know.
Did you just get here?
I was your stream now.
Yeah, how was your stream? Are you there now? I say if you want to, you can join us in the Discord.
So, what's next on the list of stories to tell?
It depends on if people suggest anything. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep reading down the line, and it's gonna be a secret.
Secret.
Yeah, a secret.
I thought about putting it into the viewers' hands, but now it's put into my hands.
I mean, if you want. I mean, you have the both of you have access to, oh, both of you as well as now, and anyone on the Arcadia Discord have access to all of the stories that I have. And the original vote was between Hans Christian Andersen or Brothers Grimm.
Well, you see, I would suggest, but I like keeping things mystery, so
I'm eventually gonna run out of stories.
well, we can get into some goosebumps.
I don't have Goosebumps. I sold those a long time ago. I used to have all of them. There were three, however, I absolutely refused to read. I had them, I just wouldn't read them. And it was the what was it? The doll one.
Slappy?
No. It was the one with the dolls.
The dollhouse thing, or
No. I'm talking about the original ones from the 90s. I'm not talking about any that were added later.
okay.
Like, I'm talking the old original ones.
Beware, you're in for a scare.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, those pretty much. What was the one? It was the ventriloquist doll one. It was a set of three of them, three
Yeah,
books.
that was Slappy.
Yeah, but what was it called, Brawler? It's like
Night of the Living Puppets, I think.
Night of the Living Night of the Living Dummy, Night of the Living Dummy, Night of the Living Dummy 2, and Night of the Living Dummy 3. At the time, I was in like elementary school, and was it my father had made these beautiful shelves that had all of my dolls and my stuffed animals and things where I we would have to get on a ladder to reach them so that way they don't get knocked off or anything like that. But when I would read, I would do it in my bed. And it looked like they were looking at me, and I swear some of them were moving. So I stopped reading those. I
Horror
read
books.
all of the rest of them. I prefer not to do horror and stuff right before bed where coffee has to work that night because sometimes I'll end up having nightmares and yeah, it messes me up, and especially since I have to work tomorrow, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. But if you want me to read a horror story, figure out which one that you want me to read, and I'm gonna have to switch it to a day where Sagirl is actually has off that day. So unfortunately, I have a very active imagination.
Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that.
I didn't even know you were gone.
I disappear and reappear on
Yes,
time.
you never say when you're leaving. You just disappear.
Well, when you're dealing with a family that, nah, I'm not gonna say it. I love my family too much.
Yeah, just every once in a while we just have the short spurts of we get frustrated, but Then we make up and stuff's okay.
Wish that was true.
Yeah. That would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
But we've all got our stuff in our past. But
So, anything exciting that's going on?
not really. I'm just reading some stories tonight, having a Pathfinder game tomorrow. Well, not Pathfinder, Bessem, actually. Was it Thursday's random game day? I'm not sure what we're doing then. Sago might just be doing one of his own games with some of the friends that he can play with. And Friday is going to be Monster Hunter.
Random gaming Thursdays, huh?
Hmm. I would suggest if we play Cards Against Humanity, but we would get in trouble with Twitch, especially the group I play with.
You gotta go play
Right,
child-friendly
right,
cards because
brawler.
apples to apples.
Don't be looking at me. I'm innocent in some of what y'all be
Yeah,
saying.
sure. You innocent, all right.
I am.
Uh huh.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow. Look what she trying to do, Chad.
Honestly, I think you're talking to yourself.
Really?
Yeah, nobody's responding. I honestly think you're talking to yourself.
Mm. Anyway, what about Uno for, I guess, not random Thursday, but just something to do like after a chill out stream, I guess.
That's an interesting thing. Um, I also still need to learn how to. I need to learn how to play Goose Goose Duck.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I'm not sure about it.
Just it's just like pointing a finger at someone else.
Yeah, it's kind of like what is it?
Among Us.
Yeah, that. But it's got the proximity chat built into it, and a
Mm-hmm.
few other neat things.
I think that's one of the cool things about it because like with the proximity in Among Us, you need to like download a mod for that.
All right, well, I
But
have it. What is it? Well, actually, it's on my old laptop. It was the crew link and then the better crew link, and both of them kind of crapped out a few times. I really wish my arms would move. 'Cause then it'd show me drinking a bottle of water.
a bottle of water.
Well, not. It's pink lemonade in a bottle of water thing. A water bottle.
Mm.
Words are difficult.
Words are difficult. Ain't that the truth?
Yep. And Sagirl's trying to catch a nap before work. I had to nudge him a little bit because he was snoring, and I was kind of trying to make sure it didn't catch on the mic. I don't know if it did or not.
Mm.
He's very sleepy as he works overnights, so it takes its toll.
Mm.
But yeah, so we have a decent week heading or set out for us.
Mm.
And might actually start getting back into LARPing again. That'd be neat.
Oh, LARPing, huh?
Mm-hmm. Live action roleplay. Mock medieval combat with foam sticks.
Or sometimes with real. Can I even say that? Nah, I'm not gonna say that.
Well, the core is PVC, but you have to make sure that it's padded enough not to actually hurt somebody.
Mhm.
Because honestly, if you're walking away with bruises, somebody's hitting too hard. Because the type that we do, you're not supposed to leave bruises. Because very few of us actually wear armor.
Armor.
Mm-hmm.
Armor,
Yeah.
weapons, and skills to find out who will win a death battle.
Well, if you start getting into the heavier ones, such as Dagahir and SCA, yeah, they wear armor because they also are allowed to use lifesteal. It's blunted, but for your protection, it's probably a good idea to wear armor.
Armor is safe for everyone.
It depends on the armor you wear. What you doing, bro?
Just playing the game.
Playing a game. Which one are you playing?
I am playing a game called Trials of Mana.
Okay, what's it about?
It's about, I guess, the trials of mana. I'm sorry. Okay, it's about it's multiple stories kind of going throughout each character. Like at the start again, you pick out three characters, each with their own story. But I would say the main story is about the mana tree, and you have to save the mana tree from withering.
You have to save a tree that needs a lot of attention.
Hmm. You know, it's a all important tree and all that. You can't let it die.
Okay.
The one I'm playing is the remake. It's like an old fashioned game.
Okay. So, um, I'm probably gonna start closing up shop then. So, thank you to everybody who showed up. Um, Thank you, Mr. Brawl and General Setsuban for being here with me tonight. And
You, you know it.
I will see you guys again. I'll definitely see you guys again on Friday when I host the Monster Hunter. For story time, that's gonna be next week. And if you guys want to see something in particular, you can send a message. We have a we're on Twitch and we're also on Discord. It's Cafe d'Arcadia on Discord, and I think it's also Cafe d'Arcadia for Twitch. But yeah, if there's something that you would prefer me to read or you want to hear read, just shoot a message and I'll see if I can do it. If Twitch will, provided it's safe to read on Twitch. But thank you everybody for coming out, and we will see you next time. Good night.
Bye. Are we good to talk now?
No.
Dang it. Now